This is ABC-7 Xtra.
Good evening, I'm Saul Saenz, and this is ABC-7 Extra Sunday Edition. Thank you for sharing your evening with us. I hope you're staying warm. Tonight, I want to share with you a topic that has perhaps been overshadowed by other headlines like the pandemic and vaccines. Mostly forgotten are the number of migrant children, either accompanied or unaccompanied, who are making the long trek from their homeland to the United States. According to the Department of Health and Human Services, as of Thursday, 9,500 migrant children are in HHS custody. That's almost 10,000 children who traveled thousands of miles, sometimes to several countries, exposed to rough terrain, many times on an empty stomach, to get to the U.S. The obvious question is, well, why not just stay home? Well, tonight, my guest will answer that question for you, and you will hear from the children themselves, some as young as 8 years old, why they can't stay in their homeland in order to survive. You may recall El Paso received national attention in 2019 when hundreds of migrants, mostly families, would present themselves at the border barrier seeking asylum. They were out there for everyone to see. But because of several U.S. policies, we don't see them out in the open the way we used to. That doesn't mean they stop coming. However, because of those same policies, children are either forced to stay in Mexico or apprehended by Border Patrol agents, making it difficult for us to talk to them. But one UTEP PhD candidate gained access to those children to ask them key questions as part of her dissertation. Why leave home, and what did they have to go through to reach the U.S.?
Relatively new migrant population.
As part of her PhD dissertation, Georgina Sanchez-Garcia traveled to Tapachula, Mexico, a port of entry into Mexico, and Ciudad Juarez, where she took on the task of talking to migrant children between the ages of 8 and 12 years old. This is part of a video she put together and posted on YouTube. What she discovered is on their path to the U.S., migrant children were exposed to violence, trafficking either directly or indirectly, and sometimes even death. She found that in 2019, as many as 52,000 children left their homeland. 30,000 of those children were under the age of 11 years old. Sanchez-Garcia used several techniques to get the children to open up about those experiences. Those children gave her a variety of reasons for leaving their homeland, from poverty
There is not enough food every day, and my tummy is empty.
to climate change.
I like to go harvest with my grandmother, but the land has changed. The dry season is longer, and in summer there are some days when we have nothing to eat. We lived in San Miguel until the Fuego volcano exploded.
The hurricane destroyed our home.
And she spoke to children who were exposed to violence.
The criminals killed my uncle because he looked after the forest. They also tree-tended my dad, so we left our home.
The Maras chased me and wanted to take me away. I ran, and I ran. I was able to get home, and my mom came out to defend me. They grabbed her and beat her in the middle of the street.
I left my town because they wanted to teach me how to shoot and kill people. I do not want to do that.
Children also spoke about their experiences on the road, like this one, who talked about travel conditions at the hands of smugglers.
The polleros put us on a covered truck. We couldn't move and it was too hot. No one was allowed to make noise. A baby wouldn't stop crying. The driver stopped and scolded his father. Then the father did not remove his hand from the baby's mouth. I no longer listened to the baby. We were 300 people. I counted them when they put us in a cellar for the night.
Full disclosure, when I heard those stories, it just tugged at my heartstrings. I want to welcome my guests who are here to talk about this latest wave of migrants, children who haven't even reached their teenage years and are forced from their homeland in search of a better life. Joining us is Georgina Sanchez-Garcia, who put together that YouTube video as part of her PhD dissertation, and UTEP professor Mark Lusk. Professor Lusk is also Human Rights Commissioner with the International Federation of Social Workers. Now, this is an extensive body of work, and I want to thank you both for sharing it with our viewers. Let me start with you, Ms. Sanchez, Georgina, because you gave me permission to call you Georgina. Please. Let's dive straight in. How many migrant children did you talk to, and how did you get them to talk to you? And to be clear, those were not the voices of the children, only the letters they wrote, correct?
Correct, that's correct. I interviewed 76 children, boys and girls, And correct, the voices are from some are from my family, my daughter, and other children that I could get the consent of their parents.
Yeah. Nonetheless, very touching stories.
Thank
How
you.
did you get them to talk to you?
Well, we developed an interview questionnaire. I mean, we developed the technique as well, and also the questions. And it's, I had experience with working with children since long time ago. I'm clinical psychologist in Mexico, and here in El Paso, in UTEP, by the way, I had the academic training of mental health counseling, and well, I just have that technique in order to talk with children.
Very, very touching stories,
Thank
I have to tell you. Professor Lusk, this shines a whole new light on the face of migration. What were your thoughts when you first saw Georgina's work?
Well, I was impressed by the quality of her ability to establish a trusting relationship with the children. I watched her do a number of interviews in Ciudad Juarez at a migrant shelter, and her ability to do that she was able to convey the vulnerability that the children have, but that was a vulnerability that's also juxtaposed with an enormous amount of strength, because these children are strong, courageous, have a lot of self-efficacy. These are kids who are very, very brave. And so while she was able to draw out the vulnerability that they have and the losses that they've experienced, she was also able to show how courageous and strong they were.
Extremely resilient, yes. And Georgina, you're a parent yourself. What was going through your mind? What were you feeling as you're talking to these children and they're sharing these stories with you? I mean, you must have at least shed a tear or something. I mean, it moved me.
Yes, and that's what I was telling Dr. Lusk, that I don't know how am I gonna, I said to him, I don't know how am I gonna make this interview, because when I remember, when I just saw the drawings, I have their voices in my mind, and it's very, very sad. But while I was with them, well, I listened carefully, and I just knew that I had to give voice to them, and it was, we established first, of course, the report. I have to say that before I start interviewing all children, the director of the shelter introduced me with the children that I was gonna work with, and then they took me to a tour through the shelter, and we just started to become friends.
Okay.
and then after that, when they saw me, but the most, what it really touched me is that they knew that I was gonna leave and that I was coming from UTEP, from El Paso, Texas. Yeah. So they were very concerned to give me their opinion. It's like they didn't go through the bushes. They went straight forward. There were straightforward denunciations.
Okay, we're going to elaborate more on that, but we're going to take a really quick break. You're watching ABC-7 Extra Sunday edition. Still ahead, some of these migrant children Georgina spoke with had horrible conditions at home. But were they exposed to even worse condition on their path to the U.S.? I'll ask my guest. But before we go to break, I want to share another testimonial from migrant children sharing their story. This is ABC-7 Extra Sunday edition, where news comes first.
The Guatemalan immigration agents didn't let us cross. We had to walk through the jungle and cross the Pass River on a raft at night. It started to rain. The thunders didn't stop, and I was very afraid of dying. Shortly after the rain stopped, and we realized that during all that time we had been next to the dock. We had already arrived, and we had
Home. It's your furniture, electronics, and appliances, plus a whole lot more. Live the Plus life at Consome Plus. Shop top brands and super hot deals for the big game, plus get next day delivery options and personalized financing. Live the Plus life and love your winning place, only at Consome Plus.
Our team is proud to receive the Lone Star Regional Emmy Award for Best Morning Newscast. It's hard to believe that it's already been 1 year.
We appreciate the recognition this annual award brings, but our commitment to you is on display each and every day.
Good Morning El Paso is the Borderlands home for complete coverage of breaking news, plus your accurate, reliable storm track weather forecast and traffic track. ABC-7's award-winning Good Morning El Paso, every weekday morning from 4:30 to 7.
At ABC-7, we made it easy to get the most out of the Kvia Storm Track Weather and Traffic app. Just point your phone at the screen to get step-by-step videos about how to set alerts on our app. Get hyper-local weather conditions and custom severe weather alerts wherever you live and work. You'll be the first to know when severe weather heads your way. Use it to keep your family safe. Scan the code, get the app, get the alert.
Sponsored by Mattress Firm.
At ABC-7, you count on us to keep your family safe.
We issued this first alert days in advance to let you know it was coming. This one means business. We have some very cold air, which is going to drop in.
Snow has blanketed the region, creating some dangerous driving conditions.
Good Morning El Paso is ready to show you hour by hour how things developed overnight.
With constant updates to the changing traffic situation.
ABC-7 Storm Track Weather.
Here when it counts to keep your family safe.
Sponsored by Mattress Firm. Have a story idea the Borderland needs to know about? It's easy to share it with the ABC-7 News team. Just click the Share tab at kvia.com or in the KVIA News app. You can also email us at news@kvia.com.
Welcome back to ABC-7 Extra Sunday Edition. Georgina Sanchez-Garcia was given rare access to migrant children who shared their stories of what it takes or what it was like for the long travel to the U.S. Here's another excerpt.
We had to walk a lot. We were hungry and thirsty. The night came and we had to sleep in the open field.
I also want to welcome back to ABC-7 Extra Georgina Sanchez-Garcia. That excerpt is from a video she put together as part of her PhD dissertation. Also joining us is UTEP Professor Mark Lusk. Professor Lusk is also a Human Rights Commissioner for the International Federation of Social Workers. Georgina, I want to ask you, these children were exposed to human traffickers. We have heard reports of girls who were raped on their path crossing Mexico. Did any of the girls tell you about any abuse that they had to endure?
Yes. Yes, they told me horrifying stories, and I'm saying horrifying, and I'm trying to use their words because this is what we wanted to bring to academia, but also to society, to the community. Yes, they were saying that it was horrifying, and for a child to use that word is painful. Yeah. And they related several stories about sexual abuse, mainly among migrant girls, and some of them, and migrant boys, they usually reported being contacted to join the criminal
criminal
gangs,
elements, yeah.
Yes, or the defense, the village defenses. Mm-hmm. So yes, almost every single one of the children left their home for those terrible situations.
Yeah. Now, you said you interviewed around 76 children. Are these some of the worst stories, or some of the stories that we are able to air?
The ones you saw in
you interviewed 76 children.
Correct.
The children that we're listening to right now, or that you put on your YouTube video, are those some of the most, I guess, horrific stories, or are those some of the stories that you're able to share?
Those were the stories I was able to share.
Yeah, they're worse than that?
Unimaginable.
Yeah. And Professor Lusk, have you heard any such reports before this? And I guess the obvious question is, do these children have any rights? Is anyone that they can turn to when some of these things happen to them?
Well, the system of social protections in their countries of origin, Central American countries and also Mexico, are inadequate, and their safety nets are practically non-existent. So they turn to shelters along the way, and they also turn to people who are voluntary helpers that make themselves available to the migrants as they come up from the south to the north. So there's a lot of informal helping networks, especially at the shelters, and they all have telephones and they're communicating with each other along the way about where to go to find safety. Some of them will stop in a shelter for a period of time and then move on, but there's high levels of vulnerability, particularly for the children who get on those trains, La Bestia, which is the cargo train that comes from southern Mexico all the way up to Ciudad Juarez. Falling off the trains, I've interviewed dozens of people who've seen horrific things happen on the trains, like people falling off of the trains, getting run over by the trains. So the children are exposed to this adversity and visualize and see this victimization, and then they themselves are victimized. So in a sense, it's like multiple trauma, the trauma that they've witnessed or experienced in their own country, then they get traumatized en route, and then when they get here, if they are able to come in and present themselves for asylum, they're sent back to Mexico under Title 42 or rapidly expelled and then forced to live on the streets or in terrible conditions in Ciudad Juarez while they wait for their case to be heard.
So it's possible that many more don't make it.
Oh, indeed.
To the border.
Indeed.
Mm-hmm. And Georgina, we've been talking about children who actually opened up to you. Did you have instances where children were just too traumatized that they didn't want to talk?
Yes. Yes. They want to talk, but they were sometimes they were distressed. And of course, I would stop the interview, and sometimes I applied some psychotherapeutic techniques such as EMDR, and sometimes we continued, sometimes we didn't continue. I actually interviewed over 100 children, but because of those some of those situations, then we just kept 76.
So it's very hard, it was sometimes very hard for them to open up, and you had to try to, I guess, put a pause on it and then continue. Were there some that you just were just so heartbreaking that you said, you know what, I've got it?
Exactly, exactly. I made the assessment, and then I will just call. Usually, some of their parents would be close to us, and not right next to me, but to us, but around. So they. And also, I was very careful because I was in this little tiny place, and on the side were all the parents with their children waiting for me. So I was very careful to not re-traumatize any child, first of all because of their well-being, but also because there were all the parents next to the other door, and then I was all by myself. So I just tried to do it in a safe way.
You've done a good job. We're going to take another quick break. You're watching ABC-7 Extra. Still ahead, the children Sanchez-Garcia spoke with were in Mexico. I'll ask Ms. Sanchez-Garcia if she requested access to children currently held in HHS custody. But before we go to break, I want to share yet another excerpt from Georgina's dissertation. We'll be back.
La danza de los viejitos, the dance of the old men, was taught to me by my grandfather. Now we see more the mask of criminals than the mask of the old men.
For 4 days only at Ashley's President's Day Preview Sale. Buy one, get one half off, plus get 0% interest for 12 months. Or get 0% interest for 5 years with 3 months payment assistance. Friday through Monday only at Ashley.
You had me at Allison 10-speed transmission. Premium features available on GMC Sierra Heavy Duty. Step up to GMC with 0% financing on Sierra Heavy Duty models. GMC, we are professional grade.
You and me, partner, we meet center of town by noon.
Hold on. Nope, Daisy's got last one lessons at noon.
Okay, I By 2 o'clock?
I got a spur fitting at 2 o'clock. How's about 3?
Oh, I'm getting thrown through a saloon window at 3.
We don't need any more overscheduling, but we could all use more ways to save.
I can squeeze you in between swim class and Kevin's Harper saddle at 3:30.
Thought was eating beans at 3:30.
Right.
Switch to Geico for more ways to save.
Tell you what about Tuesday?
I'm Jorge Rivas, and I am humbly asking for your vote for Judge of County Court at Law number 3 on March 1st. As a retired field artillery and JAG officer, I'm the only veteran in this race. I'm also an associate judge for El Paso, and I bring over 16 years of judicial experience. With over 23 years of experience, I am committed to treating people with dignity and respect. It's your court, and I am ready to humbly serve you as Judge of County Court at Law number 3.
Friday through Monday only at Ashley's President's Day preview sale. Buy one, get one half off. Buy this upholstered sofa, get the matching love seat half off. Or get 0% interest for 5 years. 4 days only at Ashley.
Welcome back to this third and final segment of ABC-7 Extra Sunday edition. I also want to welcome back Georgina Sanchez-Garcia. She was given extraordinary access to migrant children who shared their stories with her about why they made the long trek to the U.S.-Mexico border and what they had to endure during their travels. Also joining us is Professor Mark Lusk with the Department of Social Work at UTEP. Professor Lusk, I want to start with you. Ms. Garcia was able to speak to children who are currently under her was she able to talk to children who are under HHS custody, or has anyone tried? Have you tried?
No, I haven't sought to do that. The protection protocols are very difficult to navigate for children in custody. So we spoke exclusively with children in Mexico at the Guatemalan-Mexico border in Tapachula, and then on the U.S.-Mexico border on the other side. Over the course of the last 15 years, I've talked to over 1,000 migrants, mostly adults, and Georgina, by virtue of her background as a psychologist who's worked with children, brought in this new element to the research, and this is a very sensitive population. Children are at risk, and so you have to follow very careful protocols in getting approval from the university in how we interact with them through the human subjects protocols.
Mm-hmm. Georgina, do you want to talk to children that are in HHS custody? Or you just want to, I guess, focus your dissertation on the children who are making their way between Mexico and the U.S.?
Currently, my dissertation is about children on the route, because I thought it was significant that people know, and the academia know how it starts. And also because the information what we have usually, common people is from reporters, right? And not from their stakeholders, especially children. And again, the children we interviewed were from 8 to 12 years old, which is middle childhood, mm-hmm. And usually that stage is neglected, mm-hmm. Not only in the social studies, but in many other areas, mm-hmm. and I didn't find a background about that particular stage, and they are in the concrete stage of development. Therefore, they were very straightforward without a societal without filters.
Mm-hmm. Professor Lusk, let's talk about the long-term implications for these children. Clearly, they're traumatized.
Well, we know from research that traumatic experiences in early childhood have long-term sequelae or long-term consequences throughout the maturational cycle and into adulthood. And so these children are going to need post-traumatic care and the kind of nurturance that will help them restore their equilibrium, if you will, because this is really very difficult for them. I do want to emphasize, though, that because they were embedded in families, they were accompanied by their parents, by other friends, by migrant trust networks, and because they were informed by optimism, hope, and faith, that they still had a lot of sources of strength to help them cope with and process the adversities that they were experiencing. So while the consequences can and might be severe for a number of them, there were protective factors that helped these children navigate that. And we were just as interested in their strengths and capabilities as we were in the trauma and adversity that they'd experienced.
Professor Lusk, Georgina, thank you so very much for bringing this story to us and helping us share it with our viewers.
Thank you, Mr. Science.
And I realize much of what you heard tonight is, well, a little unsettling. Children having to go through so much hardship to try to find a better way of life. But I also hope it sheds some light on why these small kids leave their homes. This has been ABC-7 Extra Sunday Edition. Thank you for watching. Good night y buenas noches.